meeting, so I'll give everybody a moment to be able to refresh their computers and move to the next item. I'd like to call this meeting to order and let the record show that all 6 board members are still here. And at this point, Dr. Fenoy, any items to add or withdraw?
None at this time.
Right, we have 4 items that have been pulled. Does anybody want to pull any other items? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda with P1, policy A1 and policy, or 3 items, policy A1 and policy O1 pulled? Motion by Mr. Bart. Yeah, Mr.
So is policy 02 advisory boundary committee still on consent?
Yes.
So I'd like to pull that one off.
Right, so we have P1 policy 1A1, policy A2, or policy O2, and policy O1 pulled. So is there a motion to approve that agenda? Motion by Mr. Barbieri, second by Mrs. Brill. All in favor, all opposed. Motion carries unanimously. So we have no speakers or presentations, so we'll move directly to the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Mrs. Brill, second by Dr. Robinson. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. We'll now move to new business. First one is CS1, Charter School. Dr. Fenoy.
I recommend the board approve the proposed third amendment to extend the charter with corrective action plan for Toussaint L'Ouverture High School for Arts and Social Justice, and authorize the superintendent and his or her designee to sign all related contracts and documents.
Motion by Dr. Robinson, second by Mrs. Andrews. I was going to call him Mr. Pegg to give a complete presentation on this, but since there were no indications we needed to. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Mr. Bernadelle, congratulations. Good luck. Our next item is P1, job descriptions.
I recommend the board approve the job descriptions as submitted.
Is there a motion? Motion by Mrs. Brill, second by Mrs. McQuinn. Mrs. Brill, you pulled that one.
Thank you. And yes, and I did speak to staff, although I didn't speak to Mr. Mitchell. But it was too late to make any change, and so I was told that I had to bring it up here. The change I want to propose, I'll tell you, and then I'll make a motion, but it's under the courier mail and courier lead mail job descriptions. Under the qualifications, it states knowledge of streets and roads in Palm Beach County, Florida, or demonstrated ability to read and follow maps. And so I said, follow maps? Nobody's using maps anymore. So I proposed that we change it to ability to utilize and follow a GPS, because first of all, it's safer. Nobody's using maps. And I did speak to Mr. Burke as well as Mr. LaCava about it. So unless you do you want me to make a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I move to change the qualifications number 4 under both the courier mail and courier lead mail. Number 4, qualification to read knowledge of streets and roads in Palm Beach County, Florida, or demonstrated ability to utilize and follow a GPS.
All right, is there a second to that amendment? Second by Mrs. Andrews. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question on the amendment. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So now we go back to the full motion to approve the job descriptions.
If I may
Mrs.
just make a
Kroll.
follow-up comment, when I spoke to Mr. LaCava, he did say that we might need to look at other policies because there may be other policies also that indicate the use of maps and any other outdated modes.
Yeah. Mr. Littlejohn, would it be appropriate for a motion that would allow just a regular administrative change to any policies that talk about outdated mapping and use GPS, or do we need to deal with each one individually?
I'm afraid you're going to have to deal with each one individually.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I kind of knew that was going to be the answer, but
Sorry,
I
I
was
know-
trying.
I know that's not the answer you wanted,
No.
but I think that you got to go through the rulemaking
So
process.
I
for
could
each
ask
one you wanna
Mr. Harris
change.
and see if he had a different answer, but I know that's no. So we'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Our next item is policy 01A1. Dr. Fenoy.
I recommend the board approve development of proposed revised policy 5.016, choice schools and programs.
Is there a motion to approve that policy? Motion by Mr. Barbieri, second by Mrs. Andrews. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. So first, let me say as nicely as I can that I was so very disappointed and dismayed at the tone of the answers I received to my numerous questions. Now, I know that I submitted these questions relatively late. I think that most everything that I asked about was discussed in the board workshop. But I'm taken aback by the tone. So let me just move on. So the line 26, I made the comment, not all choice programs receive additional resources. For example, Roosevelt Elementary. The answer was, additional resources include capital money, business partnership, advisory council contributions, and other non-monetary resources. Really? I didn't know that? I made the point that we have in a policy that the choice and career education programs are specialized educational programs that enable students to take advantage of additional resources and innovative teaching techniques, so on and so forth. And I want you to know clearly, and I made the point last time that not all schools get additional resources, but it's in the policy, and then I get an insulting response. So either we're going to make sure that all the choice programs have additional resources, or we need to stop saying that in the policy. So I'm just wondering which one should it be. I vote for they get the additional resources.
Very key.
As policy, or as new programs are coming on board, there is a process to review the particular budget and costs adding on. And over time, there's been a lot of new programs that have been added into our system over time. However, there are some financial implications. Staff is looking at how we currently allocate across the board of all programs and to try and take a more equitable approach to provide those programs where there may be similar programming from one school to another, but there is not funding for a particular school. So we're continuing to look at that, and we will bring that back, but there are some financial implications there.
Okay, so I think that last time I asked for like a spreadsheet, right? And so, if you can just give me like an ETA on that. But so, I mean, from what you're saying then, do we need to stop, do we need to remove this language from the policy so that we're not acting contrary to our policy? Or are we going to live up to expectations?
We're going to take that back, and we'll look at it, and we'll look at the spreadsheet. We're continuing to look at that. We have to look at all programs.
Okay.
So
moving on, line 98. I'm going to skip some of my questions. I'm not going to ask everyone. But line 98. So we have this language in here about the entrance to dual language programs, but we don't talk about entrance to Montessori. But as I understand the Montessori programs, we don't let you in a Montessori program after first grade unless you were already in a Montessori program.
students have to be at that level, and I think we've discussed it. Under the question, we were looking at entrance in as in a pre-K or K or 1. So I believe what you're asking for is a description if it's after 1 that they have to have Montessori or pre-Montessori training or schooling in order to get in. And we didn't see that in the question, but we can obviously look at putting that in the booklet because I think we've discussed that too, and it's a good addition.
Okay, but so since we're listing in the policy the criteria for getting in dual language, should we not list in the policy the criteria for getting in Montessori and not just in the, oh, I'm looking at the manual. So, okay, let me get my language straight. In the manual.
In the manual, yes.
Okay,
in the
so
booklet,
it
it describes the program, yes, but in
Okay.
the manual, yes, understood.
Okay. And then, okay, I'm going to try to skip some of this. So if I go to 280 to 283, I don't think I saw this the first go round. So it's the parent's responsibility to know that the program that they're requesting for their child is available in their home school. And as I recall, what I read is that they'll be bumped out. Their application will not be processed. Am I misunderstanding this?
Yes, when a parent is online applying, not children, we prefer parents apply.
Okay.
When they enter their address, the system automatically relocates where they are and what programs are available to them, and it only gives them the drop-down menus that programs that are available to them. Also within that is, do you want transportation or do you pass on transportation, and it'll
Okay.
give you more options. So it really does go right back to, and we work with our planning department such, it goes back to exactly what options are offered per your address as we regionalize all the programs.
Okay, so adding the transportation drop down is a good tweak, so
Yes.
we don't get stuck in problems
Thinking you
that
have a
we've
big
lived through
long ride
before.
and you're not
Right.
getting one, yes.
Or we're just not providing a bus for you,
Mhm.
right? But, okay, so what I'm understanding then is you cannot apply. If my home school has a IB program, but I want my baby to go to Suncoast IB program, right?
Mhm.
The computer won't let me apply to Suncoast IB program?
For full choice programs, you can apply. Every student
Okay.
in the in the applications for full choice, because full choice schools do not have boundaries, so they are able to apply. So if a child at Carver would like to apply for Suncoast, they're not held back because Atlantic has IB. They would automatically be able to go to
Okay.
Atlantic, yes.
So I'm sorry, but
No, no.
if I live in Forest Hills boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I want IB, but for whatever reason, I want my baby to go to Atlantic's IB, the computer won't let me.
Absolutely, correct. Because it's
Okay.
not full choice at Atlantic.
Okay, so
That's-
the computer,
yeah.
okay,
First
I got
choice.
it. Okay.
Second choice it may.
Okay, all right, thank you. And the same kind of question about this over 95% capacity,
Mm-hmm.
it won't let me apply if it's over 95% capacity, or how does, explain that to me?
Well, that was an addition by Mr. Barbieri, and in further discussion, we wanted to make sure that schools are like, give an example, Boca High, where students are, there's so many students there, we want to actually see if students want to go outside the boundary and go to a medical program such as West Boca, which is a great program as well, because West Boca or Boca Raton only takes 35 students in boundary because they don't take a lot of seats. So this would give an opportunity for students in overcrowded schools to have an opportunity to apply to programs outside their school to obviously, lessen the load at the overcrowded school, but also give more opportunities for students in that school to see other programs out there. The question remains, do we allow them to apply to other schools that are over 95%? The schools that are over 95% are already getting an allocated seat, so it wouldn't increase that allocation. So moving it to saying that if I'm at a 95% or higher school and want to apply to a school that's got higher than 95%, it wouldn't hurt it in any way because the schools have already allocated the choice boundary seats to that, such as a kid from Boca Raton wanting to apply for Park Vista, which is over 95. It wouldn't change that. We could add that language in that they don't move, but I don't think it would alter that simply because the seats are already allocated at Park Vista to stay at their level. And that certainly is a discussion point because we've just recently added that.
Yeah, so I didn't understand that. So from a parent's point of view, can my baby apply for the program at the school that's greater than 95%?
As it reads currently, yes.
Okay.
If you're in a school that's over 95%.
But if I'm not, if my home school is a school that is 70% capacity, I cannot apply to a choice program in a school that's 95%? That's what you're saying?
If your school has the same program, no, you can't apply. A first choice, you can't
But
apply.
if it's the same program, we just talked about that in the previous section, unless it's all choice.
If
okay,
it's
I'm
all
just saying,
choice,
that's
yes.
got- there's
If
something
it's
wrong
all
with
choice,
that.
they can apply wherever,
Okay.
yes.
I'm not gonna beat this up. There's something wrong with that 95% thing.
We'll provide a follow-up clarity on that, because the whole point of the 95% was to help relieve some of the overcrowding in some of our high schools where there was a similar programming, so that would provide some relief. But the intent to go to a school higher than 95%, no, that was not the original intent.
No, that's not the
So
intent.
we'll provide a written response back to the board and clarify that piece.
Okay, thank you. And then the last thing I'm gonna say at this point, is this, the thing with the template, the lines 212 to 215, and I asked, is there a template that schools use to outline their recruitment plan, right? And the response said there's no template, a template with necessary items will be created with assistance from SSEA to distribute to schools.
It's a great recommendation. I do know that we do meet with our coordinators from every school once a month and talk about recruitment and diversity and making sure we reach out to every community. But if we bullet those items and give them an idea of what we want to see in their marketing plan, because this is more about marketing too, and have some consistency, it's an excellent idea, and I think
And assist them,
Yes, absolutely.
like Village.
Absolutely. So it was an excellent recommendation, and if we had more time, we would have jumped on it, but we're going to jump on it tomorrow. Well, they will, because I will not be in tomorrow.
Okay, so I'll leave all the rest of my issues to private conversations then. Thank you.
All right, other questions, Mr. Barbieri?
Dr. Lacotte, I apologize. I didn't have a chance to talk to you about this one, but you and I have had discussions about these in-house programs forever. Let's assume for a minute that Boca High School is at 90%, which is probably never in my lifetime going to happen, but let's assume it did. They've got a medical program. It's an in-house program that is nowhere near as comprehensive as the medical program at West Boca High School. So these in-house programs are actually keeping students at an inferior program, in my opinion, than going to a choice academy program that's already staffed up with everything they need. Let's look at a better example. We have the culinary academy at West Boca High School that the school board approved some years ago at an expense of, I don't know, $5 or $6 million for that facility. If Spanish River had a culinary in-house program, kids from Spanish River would have to stay there. It might be a home ec program on steroids, but they can't go to the culinary academy at West Boca. We need to address these in-house programs that keep students in a program in a school that's inferior to our choice academies, which we all know, they're recognized around the country, the academy programs. So, I mean, I just give me the rationale why we should restrict a student from applying to a regular choice academy with all of the bells and whistles that we put in those and keep them at an in-house program at a school, which is, I think if you compare any of them, Olympic Heights may be an example of not a good comparison because they have a great culinary program at that school that's doing well, but give me rationale why we do this. I mean, if we put all this money into these academies and these schools, why would we restrict students from going to some of those academies?
From that perspective, yes, but keep in mind that all the curriculum is exactly the same. You know, you look at the in-house programs at Park Vista. They'll be going to medical in-house simply because there's so many in-house medical programs. It's exactly the same. The standards are the same, the curriculum the same, and I'm glad you recognize the Olympic Heights culinary program, which does not have the facility. West Boca's got an amazing facility. The teacher is cranking out some great numbers of kids that are certified. So it does, from your perspective, it does present a very good question, but we try and make sure that all our programs are aligned. And when you look at an example such as Park Vista's Medical, which is wonderful, you know, we have one down the street at Boynton Beach High now that we opened 2 years ago, and they had a 100% pass rate last week, and they'll be featured on the news. So we're really trying to make sure. The in-house problem occurred about 10 years ago when you had a school such as Royal Palm Beach High that had a medical program, and kids were running from it to go to different other schools, and it dropped down to 83% capacity, and they were able to apply at other schools. Since we've put that in place, Royal Palm's up to 96, 97%, and kids are going to that program and getting the same education. It's our responsibility to make sure it's aligned and it's the same. Facility, though, to the optics, yes, the facility from West Boca Heights, we know, is significantly different. And it does present a problem from that perspective, but our responsibility is to make sure everything is in alignment. So that was the rationale for it, and to make sure that we're staying in line with that. Do we need to review it? We could always review it, but our alignment to a curriculum is the same.
And there's also the cost of transportation
Yes.
that can be added on. And this was also to reduce those issues of cost.
Yeah. Mr. Barbieri.
So maybe you answered that question to my next question. So why don't we change all the in-house programs to regular programs so that students can go to these different schools without having to be restricted to their own school if they don't want to go to their own school? And maybe we tell them, if there's a school, if it's in your school and you want to go to another school, you pay for your own transportation. I mean, we should take a look at this. If we're going to give kids choice, then let's give them choice and not restrict them to going to a program that they really don't want to be in. I mean, I don't understand why. We should take another look at this. And if it's the transportation is the real reason we do this, then we need to maybe make a policy change that says if you have academy program at your school and you want to go to one that's 10 miles away, you're going to pay your own fare to get there.
We do allow that for second choice. We also know that a lot of those options are not about the program, it's about the school. We recently were recognized as the best in the country for our choice programs, and it was based on data and equity and how we managed to make sure that we align ourselves to the applications that we receive. So I understand that. I do see that. I get that. But prior to this, we had some very inequitable issues, and we still need to work on them, yes. But when we saw what was happening with the leaving of schools to go to other programs, it was the parents and the students that had the ability and the resources to go, and not the students who relied on our transportation. This was one of the major reasons why we became a very equitable system. We still got work to do, but this was one of the main reasons why, that the students that didn't have the ability to transfer because of transportation to go to other schools.
All right. I'll buy
And
that.
I know where you're coming from, and I understand, and it does need to be looked at, but I see it.
Mrs. Andrews?
Thank you, and I like those points, Mr. Barbieri, but another thought, Mr. Licata, many schools have to begin with an in-house program just to get on their feet before they can actually move to the next level. And as you think about the Royal Palm Beach High School programs, I mean, they start small, but as they begin to grow and get where they need to go, then it can actually revert into a full-blown choice. But many times the parents and the school community want to make sure that their children get the first shot when you're starting a new program. Isn't that part of what we talked about?
Yes, that is a part of it. It's also about making sure our feeder patterns look great, and right now our feeder patterns do look very good. We do have a couple voids that we're trying to work through, and IB was one of them. But I know that Mr. Barbieri points out a very good idea that, the kids in culinary at Heights are doing a great job, but they're not exposed to the kitchen that West Boca has, and where probably their resources or where their future employment would be. And it does raise a question. So it's a difficult problem, but at what risk do we put that through and get back to where we were, where we have a look that's not equitable?
I just want to add also, Dr. Johnson was adding that many of our programs are in-house only, Mr. Barbieri, because of capacity issues, that there's enough kids within the zone school attendance boundaries that they
we
cannot
don't get
take.
any out-of-boundary seats.
So, Dr. Robinson?
Dr. Licata, I think you just said something about with second choice, kids with second choice, they could provide their own transportation or something. What was that you said?
Students may apply for any program even if it's in their school for second choice. Their first choice must be in the school in which they reside. So if they're not selected at Boca High for the medical program, let's say it's a student, and there's only 35 seats for in-house, their second choice could be West Boca Medical, and if they do get it, they are able to get to that school. And it doesn't have to do with transportation. If they're in the transportation zone, they'll get it.
Okay, then I misheard you. So I hope we're going to be having a workshop. I actually requested that we start having annual choice workshops, and because I think we need to see the regionalization. We need to look at the spreadsheet of data that we're going to add the kids in the priority attendance area to that spreadsheet, right? And I need you really to essentially prove to me that the curriculum is the same across programs with the same name. And then also we need to look at what's missing, right? What's the demand and what's missing, right? And so, because my pet peeve remains the pre-vet program, okay? The pre-vet program, and maybe there's a little baby that lives in Lake Park that wants to be a veterinarian, okay? But can't go because we don't provide transportation, okay? So we need to look at, we just need to look at the whole picture. You guys see the whole picture. We see it piece by piece, and I think it's time that we lay it all out and look at the maps and see who wants what, and who has access to what, and also who is getting the resources to make their program be what it's supposed to be. So the first one I want to see on that spreadsheet is comparing Poinciana to Roosevelt Elementary, so you can prove to me that the curriculum is the same in those schools with the same, supposedly the same program. I need you to prove that to me.
And that would be something we could do, and not to get into it deeply, but Dr. Johnson also will be heading the charge for our summit, our Choice Summit that we have every 3 years. And these are some of the things we're going to cover with the business community and the local colleges and our business partners as well as board members. But we want to make sure that we're answering the needs of the community, and this is where we will do it. And Dr. Johnson will be heading that in charge, because it is a valuable event to see who and what we need. I know we're good, but we can always be better. And these are some of the things, as you're pointing out, that will make us better.
But Ray Ray's mama's not going to be there. So please don't tell me that we're getting all the input from the community. Okay? I'm just saying, Dr. Licata, let's... Okay? Okay.
Mr. Barbieri.
So it sounds like we're beating up on you, Dr. Licata, but so we just won an award. What was the award for? Because I think the district has got one of the finest choice programs in the entire country. So what did we just win an award for?
I compare it to a Ferrari. When you look at a Ferrari, you notice the little speck in the paint that's a problem, and we're that good. You get to see some things and imperfections. But we did win an award for the best district in the country for equity and sustainability, and it's based on data. It's not a popularity contest, and we'll celebrate that next week. So,
Dr. Robinson wants you to share the data.
It was shared at the meeting last month regarding our applications and the amount of students in diversity that did get in there within 1%. We're matching to the amount of applications. So our data looks very good, and we share it every year in the big report at the beginning of the year once we make all the placements, and I think you have a copy of that as well. I think it's called the Dr. Robinson Report, as a matter of fact.
Mrs. Brill.
Thank you. And I was going to do the same thing that Mr. Barbieri just did. I was going to say that I just want to thank you for all that you do, because it does sound like you're being beaten up, but I got to tell you, when I go out in the public, the choice programs are the one thing that everybody applauds. We just have such a wonderful array. The students are leaving, knowing what they want to do, and in many cases with their future, or changing what they want to do. And the best testimony to what you're doing is when you go out to the fairgrounds, when we can go out and see your program. So thank you.
All right, Mrs. Andrews.
And ditto, Royal Palm Beach has done a fabulous job. The new Navy Junior ROTC program there, as well as all the elementary, middle school, and high school programs that are actually feeding into each other. Fabulous. And not even to mention the kinds of things we're doing out in the Glades. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, we'll call the question on this. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item, and at this time, give everybody a moment to refresh your computers, if you haven't already done that, to add the item that Mr. Barbieri pulled. Our next item is Policy 01, Student Assignment. Dr. Fenoy.
I recommend the board approve development of proposed revised policy 5.01, student assignment.
Is there a motion? Motion by Mrs. Andrews, second by Mr. Barbieri. Mrs. Brill, you pulled this one.
Thank you. I have a question, and I have a one-word change. So I'll wait till they get settled. Everybody good? Okay, so I do have a one-word change, but I also have a question. So my question is, has to do with, it's talking about students being assigned in the beginning on line 6. Students shall be assigned to schools based on their residence of their student parents or legal guardians, as stated below. What do we do in the case of a divorce where parents have equal shared custody and they live in different areas?
Want me to? And I can answer that. If it's 50-50, oftentimes there's a court order that will state, and we go by what the court order says. And for instance, if it's 50-50 and it says the residence for school will be determined by the residence of the dad, we will follow that. Otherwise, it could be either one.
Thank you. And that, just as a follow-up, they can switch if they, decide to, if it's 50-50 and there's no court order.
I don't have the policy in front of me right this second, which is the other policy, but I believe it states that if it's 50-50, they have a choice. If
Thank
there's
you.
no court order stating that it should be one parent.
And then my word change, okay, is at line 302. I'll just read the line, the paragraph. ABC recommendations will be presented to the superintendent. Dissenting viewpoints may also be presented to the superintendent. I would like to propose that instead of saying dissenting viewpoints may be presented, I'd like it that they will be presented to the superintendent, because I think the superintendent should know about whatever dissenting views are put forward.
Mr. Littlejohn, since we're in development on this, does the board need to take action or a consensus, or can we just leave that up to staff?
They could
think-
vote.
I think you can direct staff and see what they bring back
Okay,
for you.
let's do it. Mrs.
the
Brill, would you make a
adoption.
motion then to amend the?
I move that we amend line 302 to read dissenting viewpoints will also be presented to the superintendent.
We have a motion, a second by Mr. Barbieri. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll call a question. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. So, all right, thank you. Our next item is policy 02.
I recommend the board approve development of proposed revised policy 5.012, advisory boundary committee.
Is there a motion? Motion by Dr. Robinson, second by Mrs. Andrews. Mr. Barbieri.
I'm sorry, yes, on this one. My question was, let me get to the right one, I'm sorry. Why do we require a vote of the full board for each one of us to make our own appointment? Where did that come from? I mean, we've always had the right to appoint to the different committees, so why now do we have to ask our colleagues if they'll allow us to appoint somebody that we want to appoint to one of the committees that are board advisory committees?
Okay, we were being consistent with what we've done with the board advisory committee appointees as well as to board member appointees, merely because the board is a collective body and acts as a collective body, and therefore for their appointees the board member can select someone, but the board as a whole would vote for them all. And we've been doing that for the board advisory committee appointees by the board for the last year or so.
So are you going to change audit and Cork and all the other committees that we point to?
Yes, it's been done for them, where you've made an appointment and then it's been coming to the board for approval.
Yeah. Okay.
It was always in consent.
Okay. It's fine. If
All right,
you don't
any
vote for mine, I'm not going to vote for yours. That's the way it'll work.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, all opposed. Motion carries 6-0. That concludes our regular part of the agenda. We did skip one thing. I skipped the superintendent comments and board member comments, and I understand Dr. Fenoy has some comments he'd like to make.
Yes, I'd just like to quickly say that I am terribly excited about shaking the hands of thousands of graduates this month. I always love to see the relieved look on parents' faces when their babies walk across that stage. And I like to say to each of our 22+ thousand employees who had a major contribution to these children's success that they've done it, and we're looking forward to this great time celebrating with our families and kids. Thank you.
Just so Dr. Robinson, I have a bruise from last year shaking hands, so Dr. Fenoy, look forward to that. So with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Barbieri, second by Mrs. Brill. All in favor, all opposed. We stand adjourned.